Welcome back. All right, so I'm wearing a Chicago jersey for this video because I like what Chicago's done in free agency thus far. The top 10 list that I'm doing today is on 10 contracts I like that have been signed during this free agent period. I am restricting this to contracts signed where a player's changing teams. So I'll look at extensions as well during the summer and ones that I like. I don't really get into the winners and losers, as I've been saying, when it comes to either the draft or free agency. But I did want to talk about contracts I like, and I'll get into why. So that being said, we're going to start off at number 10, obviously. Columbus is on the board, and the contract belongs to Sean Monahan. I believe it's 5 years, correct? Yes, it is. It's a 5-year deal. So there's some risk with 5 years. A $5.5 million cap hit is relatively high considering there's some risk to this, right? Monahan has at times over the last few years had trouble with staying healthy, but if you're Columbus, you have Johnny Gaudreau and you want to get him going. Putting him back with Sean Monahan could very well get him going. We may be talking about this in November and saying what a brilliant move that was by Don Waddell. I have it at 10th because there's risk to it, but I get what Columbus is doing here, and so I like it. Now, I'm going to say this too. I've restricted this so only one contract per team was allowed, so it's not just going to be a bunch of Blackhawk contracts or anything like that. But yeah, number 10 is Columbus's entry, which is Sean Monahan. Number 9 is the Vancouver entry, and for Vancouver, I'm going with Danton Heinen. Now, I've watched Heinen in Boston long enough to know that he is a very good player. He's a good depth player. He can play up the lineup if he needs to. It's a 2-year deal, $2.25 million cap hit. I really can't find fault with that. In the event that Heinen plays, let's just say it's a terrible run with Vancouver, you can trade a $2.25 million cap hit. You can do that. Vancouver, I think, did a good job with their depth. There's some discussion about whether or not there's enough room now on the roster for some of their young players. But I think you're better off to have too many players than not enough. So that's how I view it. And Danton Heinen, I'm hoping, does really well in Vancouver, but that's at number 9. Number 8, for Colorado, they take... There's really no risk to this contract at all, and there could potentially be some upside here too. So Brannstrom had a rough go of it in Ottawa, right? He had a rough go of it in Ottawa, clearly needed a change of scenery, and he goes to Colorado on a 1-year deal with a value of $900,000. So keep in mind that if you bury a contract in the minors, that entire contract gets taken out. So for anybody who wants to say, Brannstrom sucks, he's not going to make it, then he gets sent down to the minors. I mean, you have to clear waivers, but again, that entire contract gets written off if Colorado sends him down to the minors. Brannstrom, the advanced stats weren't awful with him. He did have, I think, deployment issues with Ottawa, or maybe he just didn't fit in that well in Ottawa. But either way, I think Brannstrom, pretty good bet, still a young player, and this is the kind of move that, it's not like Forsling going to Florida, but it's not completely dissimilar in that Forsling bounced around a little bit before he found his home in Florida. Maybe Brannstrom just hasn't found his home yet. Maybe it'll be in Colorado. Number 7, going with an LA signing. This one won't really surprise people who are long-term fans of the channel, I think. I don't think people will be all that surprised that Warren Foegele's going on the board. It is just interesting because Foegele goes from Edmonton to LA, gets a 3-year deal, and the cap hit is $3.5 million. Now, for Foegele, he's coming off of a career year offensively. But if the offense drops off in his first year in LA, it doesn't necessarily make it a bad contract. Only if his defensive game suffers. But you're never going to see Foegele take a shift off. And I think the offense that clicked in Edmonton, I don't see a reason why he won't be able to score at a similar rate in LA. Obviously, going from Edmonton to LA, you're not on a team that's as offensively explosive as Edmonton. So sure, his goals and his points may come down a bit. But I really like the cap hit. The contract, the terms, you'll notice that I don't have an 8 or a 7-year contract on the board. And yeah, there won't be. There's a couple 6-year contracts. But yeah, I didn't go with anything that's 7 or 8 years. But Foegele at 3 years at $3.5 million, I can't argue with that at all. And then Washington. Now, I've seen people complain about this contract, but if you're an LA fan, and if you've watched my videos long enough, you'll know I am a big fan of Matt Roy. Matt Roy signs a 6-year deal with the Washington Capitals. The cap hit $5.75 million per season. I'll say this. Sean Durzi gets $6 million a year from Utah. If I had a choice between having Matt Roy on my team or Durzi and I'm putting a team together, I'm taking Matt Roy. And that's not an insult to Durzi. It's just I think Roy is that good as a defenseman, and I think Capitals fans are really going to like his game a lot. You want to talk about guys who work hard? Matt Roy absolutely does that. I think the Kings are going to miss him on the blue line. I do. I think that's going to be a tough one for them, and I think this could be a huge deal for Washington, a team that also picked up Chychrun from Ottawa. So, yeah, that blue line in Washington is going to look a little bit different this season, and it should be better. So, yeah, the Matt Roy contract goes on there. I did see some people going, oh, that's way too long and too much money. But personally, having watched as many games of his as I have, I can't complain about that contract. At number 5, an Edmonton Oilers contract ends up at number 5, and it is Arvidsson, which is a 2-year deal, right? It is a 2-year deal. Now, there's risk. Arvidsson gets $4 million per season. If Viktor Arvidsson could stay healthy for a full 82 games, I think he's a 30-goal scorer. $4 million would be way lower than what I think he could get if he could stay healthy at the NHL level for a full season. And that's been a trick. And if he can pull that off in Edmonton, I think Oiler fans are going to be quite happy. And I debated about whether or not to put Jeff Skinner's contract up here or Arvidsson's. I'm going with Arvidsson, but the Skinner contract's excellent as well. I think the Oilers have had a good offseason thus far. And again, at $4 million per season, the risk is not as high as it is for some of the other contracts that got signed. And I know Arvidsson, again, hard worker, yes. Player I've been a fan of for a long time, also yes. And so, again, hopefully he can stay healthy in Edmonton. There will be some who look at that and go, he can't stay healthy, but you never know. It does happen at times where as a guy gets older, suddenly he's not missing games. Number 4, now we get the Chicago Blackhawks entry on this list. And it's a guy who was a Blackhawk before. It is interesting, too, because I've seen Hawk fans that have been upset that Teuvo Teravainen was no longer a member of the team. Now he's back. He gets a 3-year deal. Cap hits $5.4 million per season. I think that's really good value for a Chicago team that had the cap space to sign Teuvo and is looking to get better. I talked about San Jose in a video today and how they've gotten better since the season ended. And I'm going to say right now, I'll be doing a video on Chicago soon enough, and it's going to be a very similar storyline. Chicago getting better and bringing back Teravainen is good. I think that's a good signal to the fans that things are going to get better. And Connor Bedard watching these signings had to be like, good, I'm going to have really good line mates this year. Not to slag the line mates he had this year, but it's going to be better next season for him. So, yeah, Teravainen should put up a bunch of points in Chicago. We'll see how that turns out. But they had an anemic offense, an attack that was virtually non-existent at points outside of Bedard, and that should no longer be the case. So, yeah, Teravainen ends up in 4th. Number 3, almost grabbed from the wrong pile. Number 3, that would have been weird. I would have been like, that's the wrong logo. But number 3 for Carolina. So Carolina loses Teravainen, but they get somebody back that I'm pretty sure Carolina fans are familiar with in Shayne Gostisbehere. So the defense is going to look quite different for Carolina, but I think with Gostisbehere, you know what you're getting. There's definitely a familiarity there, and I like Ghost. I think he's a good defenseman, and looking forward to seeing what he can do there. Keep in mind, on a $3.2 million cap hit, that's fantastic. For what Ghost does and for how good he can be, I really like a $3.2 million cap hit. I think fantastic. Again, I don't mean to say anything negative with Durzi, and I'm not trying to, but Durzi's cap hit's almost double Gostisbehere's. So, again, just looking at the value that you're getting if you're Carolina, I think it's pretty high. Number 2. Now we go to New Jersey with this one, and there's a Carolina tie-in yet again. There absolutely is. It's Brett Pesce. Pesce's going to be missed in Carolina. I don't think there's any doubt about that. He signs a 6-year deal, so he doesn't quite get the maximum amount of term. But then you look at the cap hit at $5.5 million. Pesce's an excellent defensive defenseman. New Jersey needed to get their goals against down, and the defense being remade the way it has been should absolutely do that, combined with adding Marchessault in net. So this is a New Jersey team that should be quite capable defensively and have some pretty good goaltending. I really like the Pesce signing. I know there's some who are going to say it's too long and the term's a little bit high, but for New Jersey, they need to bounce back and get back into the playoffs and show they're going in the right direction. Putting Pesce on that blue line should help a ton. So, who's number one? Well, we're going to go to Nashville. And with Nashville, there are some good contracts here. But with Nashville, the one that stands out to me, considering he was a 40-goal scorer. Now, it is absolutely fair to point out that Marchessault had never reached 40 goals in his career before. But on a 5-year deal and a cap hit of $5.5 million per, I think that's absolutely fair. So you'll notice that the highest cap hit on the board is $5.75 million. The lowest cap hit's $900,000, and a lot of these are players that I've talked about before. And I just mean like for longtime viewers of the channel, be like, yeah, that checks out. But Marchessault, on his exit from Vegas, clearly not all that happy with how that came to an end. I think Marchessault has some motivation going into this season to show that the 40-goal season last year wasn't a fluke. But at $5.5 million for the cap hit, that's very reasonable. I had expected Marchessault to be in the 7 range. I didn't know if it was going to be 5 years. I think maybe if it was a 3-year deal, it would have been in the 7 range. But at any rate, I think Nashville gets good value there. And overall, I think Nashville's done a good job in the offseason. Not that I want to tip my hand in terms of teams I want to talk about how I've really thought they've done well in the offseason, because that will be probably my next list. But Nashville is going to be dangerous. I know when I was going over who signed where, my wife shook her head and said, "Oh, Nashville's gonna be something next year," and I was like, "Yep, that's gonna be the case." And Marchessault's gonna be one of the main guys for them. Nashville at times has been kind of hard to watch for being kind of boring. I don't think Nashville's gonna be boring this coming season. I think they're gonna be kind of fun to watch. And adding Marchessault, adding Stamkos, and then Shayne as well. There's some good deals there. But I like the Marchessault one the best. So, which contract do you think was the best one that was signed between July the 1st and now for a player changing teams? And again, I'll talk about extensions players have got from teams they're with. I will talk about which teams I think did well. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event that you have not done so already. And I know most of you will already have done so. But thank you guys so much for all your support as always. I will talk to you again soon.